you host black cards over here, you host red cards over here, and sometimes you get to host both at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. There is one copy of that card in Travis's main deck, I believe, alongside 3 more in the sideboard. So that is definitely going to be something. Travis Brown, being our 2 seed, is going to be on the play. So, it's something that Isaiah is going to even have to consider if Travis just goes, planes, maybe play an Ornithopter and a pass, has to consider what, is it worth going for maybe a Thoughtseize here or Grief? Always has to keep that in the back of his mind, even more so in the post-board games, once there are 4 copies present.
Absolutely, yeah. This does come at the cost of, we don't see a card like Sanctifier on Vec, which is used to be a sideboard staple there, so losing out on that a bit, but I think Travis probably still feels quite confident in his matchup here.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, whose side of things do you favor? I mean, maybe you already gave that answer away. I don't have a ton of experience with this matchup. I don't play a lot of either deck. I know you're kind of big on the scam stuff. So who do you like in this matchup?
I think I like the Hammer side, and the new cards, Forge Anew in particular, I think is a really big deal as well there. So I think it was close, but Hammer was a bit ahead before, and I definitely like the Hammer side now.
All right, and you obviously probably like Travis's spot a little bit more with him being on the play. Travis has the signature white border Urza Saga, so we can't escape the white border cards, Dom. They're here all the time.
You love to see it or hate to see it, depending on how you feel about these things.
Yeah. All right. So looks like Travis has decided to keep, and looks like Isaiah's going to go ahead and take a mulligan. Now that white border card that we saw in Travis's hand, Urza Saga, that one is particularly potent in this matchup, and being on the play maybe is can get some value out of that even prior to Isaiah maybe being able to Blood Moon it away. Plays it on turn 2, gets at least a token out of it before a Blood Moon hits the battlefield. So definitely a card that it's the Rakdos deck has a lot of Thoughtseize, Terminate, Lightning Bolt, stuff like that a lot of these 1-for-1s, but Urza Saga being able to present 2 creatures has to you're requiring them to answer it in a much different fashion. We will have to see if Isaiah is going to stay on 6, potentially go to 5. Looks like some lands, a Ragavan, a Thoughtseize, a Pyromancer, and a Fury. So I have to imagine that is potentially a keep. And Isaiah agrees, and we are off to the races. We got a Plains and a Pass. And, again, there's only one copy of Surge of Salvation in Travis's deck, but if he has it here, it's going to be kind of a blowout. All right, no Surge.
It's impossible. Yeah, impossible to ignore that card, right? Like, it's always going to be at the back of your mind. Yeah, it's only one copy, but what if, right? What if it's there? And it's going to make things a lot harder. Post-board, they have 4 copies. They're probably going to have one. But for now, it's a weird gamble.
Yep, and no Surge of Salvation, but we do see the new card that we talked about, Forge Anew, in the hand for Travis. We'll see if that's the selection, and it is. Boo! Isaiah doesn't want to see new cards. Boo! But yeah, does have Urza Saga here, likely going to play that on turn 2, able to maybe make a couple of constructs prior to a Blood Moon, and there is the Urza Saga.
Yeah, Travis trying to save that Puresteel Paladin for when he can play it and immediately equip a hammer there, not expose it to removal. Stoneforge Mystic, a nice pick up there as well. I imagine going to get a hammer rather than Kaldra Compleat, but he might decide to force Isaiah's hand, make him have the removal spell for the Mystic, clearing the way for Saga constructs and Paladin and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah, endless conga line of threats here, but is going to go ahead and decide to get the Colossus Hammer. And we know the rest of the contents of Travis's hand, so able to make a construct on turn 2, like we said, again, even in the face of a Blood Moon, can at least get something out of it. But Isaiah is, at least the upside. Isaiah knows the rest of the contents of the hand from the Thoughtseize, so isn't in a spot where sometimes where Stoneforge gets played, Colossus Hammer gets revealed, and you're like, do you think they just have the Kaldra already? But doesn't have to think about that here.
Castle Lockthane, pulling overtime once again, helping to cast Doughty Voidwalker, which this is not one of the matchups where that card really shines. Like, it doesn't really attack well or block well. Unless you snag the Kaldra from their hand, there's not really anything that your deck can grab from theirs that is useful for you. So it's just kind of there hanging out. And that's one of the cards that usually is going to hit the bench and sideboarding too.
Right, exactly. First time, I think this is the first time I've ever seen Castle Lockthwain enter the battlefield untapped. So that's a first for me. But we will see what Travis decides to go here. Have to imagine you just want to go towards making a construct. Going to go ahead and deploy the Paradise Mantle first. Interesting. So potentially giving up an extra card if he wanted to go for the Puresteel Paladin next turn in favor of developing his mana and giving him access to more mana next turn.
Yeah, I think I like this. This lets you activate the Saga, activate it again, and without that second white source, he's going to need to put the mantle on something to cast a Paladin in the first place. So this is a nice hedge against all of that.
Yeah, I was thinking you could have deployed the Sunbaked Canyon this turn, but I guess this way you get to deploy the Inkmoth and get another mana source and be able to make a construct token this turn. So it kind of gets the best of all worlds with this play.
Yeah, and getting that Inkmoth in play means you have the kill rolled up for next turn, right? You get the hammer off the Saga, and then you play the Paladin, activate Inkmoth, equip it, or you do that first, so you can do it right away, and really put Isaiah to the test there.
Yep, so we're going to see Travis float a mana off of the Stoneforge Mystic, make a construct token, so we can see, and we both know that everybody knows there's a hammer and a paladin in hand, so you can see maybe go Saga, float a mana. We're actually going to go for a construct here. Interesting. So we could have gone potentially Saga, float a mana, get Drum, use Drum construct, make white, tap white, paladin, colorless floating, animate Saga. I guess you were one short in that regard.
Well, I think Travis also realizes, why bother, right? If Isaiah has a removal spell, then you get punished. This way, you just get another 4/4 that's going to be a 6/6 in a few turns. You don't have to go for the kill right away, so just you're already red. That's your advantage while you can.
Right. Yeah. The second construct puts a lot of pressure on Isaiah. The Dothy Voidwalker not very good at blocking, and notably Isaiah missing red mana. Swamp Castle Lockthwain not able to cast anything like a Blood Moon or a Kolaghan's Command or a Terminate or anything like that. So Travis kind of senses a little bit of weakness, and maybe he is correct. Okay. And we have another Saga too, so that's just going to keep adding on to the pressure. I love this too, because you can go for the hammer here and you say, okay, if you have a removal spell, that's fine. My construct dies. I didn't really lose that much because you're trading a removal spell for, a construct that was half of my Urza Saga or maybe even a third. And then we both know that he has the Puresteel Paladin to follow up anyway. So even if the Saga token got removed, you could then just say use Plains plus the Paradise Mantle to then cast the Puresteel Paladin in hand. And that would just give you, just constant access to re-equipping the hammer.
And worth noting too, we're in the top 8 now. Deck lists are public. Travis can look at Isaiah's list and realize with no access to red mana, there's actually no way to interact here at instant speed. So no deck, we got just max lightning bolts there. And so yeah, you can safely shove on a 16/16 construct and it's going to go the distance.
That is a good point. Yeah, I didn't remember that deck lists are public or players have access to deck list. And yeah, no fatal pushes means coast is clear. Now, Isaiah did play a red source, but I mean, honestly, at this point, even if he does have something like a removal spell, it's just, I can't imagine it's enough here, given that you took that huge hit last turn.
Yes. A long overdue lightning bolt, but that is not close to good enough. The construct's going to take it home by themselves there.
Absolutely. So we are going to go towards the Inkmoth Nexus. And not sure what Travis's last card in his hand. Not sure that it matters. Yep. So we're going to kill the construct. And the other construct is lethal. That is going to be Travis Brown taking game number 1. And let's go ahead and take a look at the deck list. So first and foremost, Isaiah's Rakdos scam list. We got 2 Turoks, a Hidetsugu Consumes All, a Magus of the Moon, 2 Obnixilis, the Adversary, 2 Fatal Push, a Path of Peril, 2 Slaughter Games, 2 Engineered Explosives, and 2 Unlicensed Terse. Dom, what do you like here?
Yeah, this is a pretty unconventional sideboard. Love the explosives. Love it'll push to the path of peril. You could argue for the Magus of the Moon, actually, it's almost like a Blood Moon in the sense of it doesn't trigger the Sentinel, can block or attack sometimes, get in the red zone. And then Hidetsugu consumes all as well. You know, the Hammer deck, one of its main selling points, it has such a low curve for those zeros and ones. And funnily enough, that's exactly what Hidetsugu consumes all blows up. So I like those. Could lose the Voidwalkers from the main deck, and then there's a debate over on the draw. Do you want Ragavan? I think on the play you certainly do, and you know that Travis doesn't have a card like Sanctifier that can just stop it completely in its tracks. So probably worth leaving those in, I imagine, but not too much sideboarding there.
All right, makes sense to me. And if we can go ahead and pull up Travis Brown's deck list, we have the pile of Surge of Salvations that we talked about before, alongside 4 Drannith Magistrate, 2 Orbar, the All Form, 2 Solitude, 3 Mana Tithe, and a Pithing Needle. Anything besides the Surge of Salvations that you like here, Dom?
I'm curious how good Travis thinks the Solitudes are in the matchup. Like, does he want to board these two in, or board the two that he has in the out? Who's for and against, actually, but I think you're not boarding that much otherwise, and Solitude very good against any kind of like Fury scam line, or if the game goes long, you just get to hardcast that thing. So I imagine he wants most, if not all, of the Solitudes too, and of course, Surge of Salvation, absolutely incredible here.
Yeah, I was thinking that, like, I guess you don't really want to be in a spot where you're pitching a card to it, but if it's like if you end up being able to kill a fury that was evoked on turn 1 off of a feign death or something along those lines, that could kind of, stem the bleeding a little bit, because otherwise that fury is going to the fury is going to kill you before you can really set up. And like you said, there's no sanctifier in Vex, so it isn't really able to check the fury in that regard. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think I like these Solitudes, at least a couple of them, somewhere around 2 or 3 most likely. But yeah, that is the deck list. So we talked about how we think we like Travis Brown's position, at least in game 1, and I don't really think it's getting any worse for Travis. I think it's arguably getting a lot better for Travis than it is for Isaiah.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. So Travis is going to be on the draw here. I wonder if you're going to be more vulnerable to cards like Blood Moon on the draw. That's the card which sometimes is lights out against Hammer. You kill their Saga and you make it so they can't cast their Puresteel Paladin anymore. Other times it's a 3-mana spell that doesn't do anything, and you're being attacked by some giant idiot already. So, but I think Scam is behind enough in the matchup that you kind of need to take those high risk situations and see if they pay off for you. So.
Exactly. We kind of, game 1, we get to see, well, we saw the Forge Anew on camera, but unfortunately for us, it was selected from the Thoughtseize. Isaiah, again, doesn't want us to have our fun. But yeah, a lot of, mana troubles, excuse me, for Isaiah that game. Didn't find the red source until turn 4. As you stated, it was a little bit too late until that point. And we see a very quick mulligan from Isaiah, and it looks like a keep from Travis. So Isaiah is going to be going down to 6. Would like to see the Forge Anew, but it's not even clear that card was kept in. I'm not sure if it's just a card that you keep in a lot of matchups, or if it's matchup specific. But Travis potentially wanted to cut those.
I think if there's a matchup for it, it's this one, basically, where your Hammer might get discarded, might get blown up by an explosives or something post-sideboard, and also that ability to just equip, and then equip again, and equip again. They might have the first removal spell for your first creature. They're not going to have 3 removal spells for all 3 of your creatures, so you're going to get that Hammer on something eventually, and that's what you need.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially, if maybe a Hammer gets Thoughtseize, or even if a if a Hammer gets Thoughtseize, you can maybe get that back with the Forge Anew's ability. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and see. Looks like both players are actually going to go ahead and take a mulligan, given the dice on the table. To see what Isaiah can find. Looks like it's hard to see exactly what's going on in terms of players' hands, but they appear to be maybe keeping, looking like taking a little bit longer than the first hands. It's one of those things where it's a snap mulligan. Those are the easy ones, but then you got to think about what we're putting back here. All right. Looks like both players did, in fact, elect to keep 6, and we are maybe off to the races. Any turn 1 scams? Well, I saw a Fury and a Feign Death.
Okay, are you making a Hogak? Is that our game plan?
If I had a red card, probably. Because the weird thing about Fury is, well, first of all, you know that there's the presence of 4 Surge of Salvations, and in situations like this, now that there's a Sigarda in play, if Travis just goes like land, 1-drop pass, you gotta worry about that. So I mean, if I had it, I might have fired it off, but we'll have to see what Isaiah does.
I think I would. It's so hard to get multiple things with a Fury, right? Like at best, you tag a Stoneforge Mystic that's already found you another card, or maybe you get an Esper Sentinel plus something else if you're lucky. A lot of the time, though, if you wait on Fury, there won't be a good moment for it. So yeah, especially on the play in a matchup that I think is tricky, I'm making an 8-8 and putting you to the test.
Yeah, it's possible I may have seen a different red card, and maybe the Fury was there, but no other red card was there. But we're gonna fire off a Grief, and we are going to see if there is a Surge of Salvation. Now, if there is a Surge of Salvation, we're going to go ahead and do it with the Grief on the stack, so that you can't. Well, I guess it wouldn't matter because it's not Emeria, but yeah, Surge of Salvation is going to make this a little rough if that's in Travis's hand. We're thinking.
Could this be Hammer maybe?
Not sure.
I think if you have Surge, you just fire it off, because otherwise the Surge gets taken by the Grief.
Right.
So this makes me think if Travis is taking this long on it, maybe it's a Hammer that we didn't want to walk into this exact Fatal Push the previous turn. Yeah, there we go.
Well, now that the Fatal Push is exiled, you can just... Oh, I see. Okay, so he was thinking... I think what happened there is... Well... Yeah, so I guess the worry is Isaiah, you let it resolve. Isaiah takes Hammer, and then he goes Undying Evil, get back Grief, take the Forge Anew. So this playing the Hammer is a lot better against specifically Undying Evil or one of those cards.
That makes sense. I guess, what does it tell you that Isaiah pitched a Fatal Push to his Grief, right? Like you wouldn't do that unless you had another one, or it was your only black card and you had to do it. So it's a sign of a lot of weakness or a lot of strength.
Yeah, I think what happened is that Isaiah did have the Feign Death and decided to pitch the Fatal Push, thinking that Travis had a lot of spells, and it just kind of didn't work out for Isaiah in the sense of, had he known Travis's hand, he probably would have pitched a Feign Death. But then you have to think about, okay, well, if he pitches Feign Death, then does Travis even cast the Hammer, or do you just force him to take the Forge Anew anyway? So this kind of this like weird, the weird back and forth there.
Yeah, so lots of mind games going on, but when the dust settles, Isaiah doesn't have a turn 3 play, and Travis has an active Urza Saga that is going to make 2 constructs and get just another Hammer to pair with that Sigarda's Aid.
Yeah, and with Isaiah on 19, can go make a construct. I mean, you could even just make a construct and still get a Hammer.
Yeah.
Right, and this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 14 on board currently.
You can just have it all. Yeah, I don't see a need to risk a removal spell on a Nexus if you go for that line. Just make another big guy and keep stacking. I mean, this is already, like, the construct is 3, we're going to 4, and then plus 10. Okay, so Pithing Needle. Huh. I guess.
Yeah,
so
and with open...
Yeah, go ahead.
With open decklist, I would kind of assume we're going to be naming Engineered Explosives.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this stage, the tokens are 4/4s. They can become 5/5s in speed with the Nexus. So Fury isn't going to take those down. And so, yeah, maybe the one way you think Isaiah gets back into it is explosives plus something else. So a nice way to hedge against that.
Well, there is a copy. It's only a one of in Isaiah's sideboard, but if there is a Hidetsugu consumes all, it's probably going to consume the rest of Travis's game. But that is not the case for Isaiah. Just going to go ahead and pass back versus those 2 constructs, and yeah, just showing how crazy Urza Saga is at just providing so much pressure.
Yeah, you can have a pile of discard spells and removal spells and so on, and all of that is so lackluster in the face of one copy of Urza Saga. I think it's why a deck like Hammer can compete in a world that has all of this good interaction with the MH2 cards, is Saga is just so good against them.
Exactly. And no response here from Isaiah. Just gonna go ahead and show the hand, which is two Feign Deaths and an Undying Evil and a Fury. And that is gonna be 2-0 for Travis Brown. So yeah, I think that I'm pretty sure that the Fury that I saw in the opening hand was actually correct. There was just no second red card. Because
Mm.
like you said, if there was the Fury and the scam card, you likely would have just put a 4/4 double strike into play on turn one. But yeah, unfortunate draws there for Isaiah.
Yeah, so the nice thing about that match ending so fast is we can just get you straight to more magic. So we're going to bring you Cat Miller Granger on the backup table with Mono Green Tron against another scam opponent over there. So we'll see if the Rakdos scam aficionados are going to have better luck of it. Cat is up a game though, so they are behind the 8 ball once again.
Yeah, this is
Or
traditionally
or
kind
or Living
of
End. Okay, excuse me, I got my wires crossed there. This is a pretty interesting matchup in its own right, where Living End, fast, highly disruptive deck, can often interact with the ways that Tron needs to assemble Tron. On the other hand, if they assemble Tron, well, you can beat a board full of random creatures with Oblivion Stone, with Khan the Great Creator, with all of this other stuff. So both decks doing something very, very powerful, and it looks like, seems like Cat, reading between the lines, managed to do that in game one.
yeah, this is traditionally a matchup where, like you mentioned, you don't from the Tron side of things, you don't really care if they do their thing as long as you have some sort of payoff. Now, the caveat there is if grief is in the mix, you can go like grief your payoff and then get back grief off the living end, grief your second payoff, so that can be a little tough. But resolved Karn, there is a Tormod script in Cat's sideboard, I believe there is, and I think that might be what's in the graveyard. Tough to say exactly, but yeah, Fletcher kind of in a tough spot here. A lot of creatures in the graveyard, maybe has something set up, but also Cat, I think, yeah, Cat has 2 Warping Whales in their list, so that could be something that they're holding up.
Mm. Yeah, and Khan is one of the scarier threats because you can play that and hold up something like Warping Whale, and then Khan's going to find you a card you care about, like Tormod Script, and even if you deal with that, well, there's still a Khan on 3 loyalty, and next turn is going to find another card that you care about, so really puts you to the test. Fletcher maybe has a window this turn, assuming there's no Warping Whale, so we'll see if they can deliver on that, but even then, let's say Cat just untaps and minus his Khan, gets Ensnaring Bridge or Oblivion Stone. Like, it can easily re-trump a Resolve Living End.
Right, so we will see a Shardless Agent going to go ahead and put a living in the stack. We'll see if there is a Warping Whale. I don't believe there was a response from Cat. So it looks like the Warping Wheel is potentially going to resolve. But yeah, like you mentioned, we have a ton of stuff in the sideboard. Specifically, the most obvious, the one that we probably want to get the most is the Oblivion Stone. Which, if Cat just has a land rolled up, you can just go Karn down tick, get back the O Stone, or go get the O Stone and then pop it. Which you would lose the Karn, but you would get rid of the rest of the board. We'll have to see how Cat wants to play this.
Yeah, could also just try and turtle up behind an Ensnaring Bridge potentially, which is risky in the sense of if there's another Foundation Breaker or Odawara or something, you just lose the game on the spot, but can buy you some time there as well.
So, what is the card to the right of the Ulamog? Your guess is as good as mine, Dom.
Uh, is that it?
Chat might have to help us out on this one.
It looks like kind of like one of those inserts, like something you use to represent stickers, or I'm baffled.
Okay, all right. Well, chat's saying it's another Ulamog, but they look like different art, so I'm not actually sure. Oh, there are 2 sides to it apparently. So apparently there's 2 different versions of it. Oh, okay, I see. Well, anyways, so 2 Ulamogs and a Cityscape Leveler in hand for Cat, and a whole bunch of stuff here for Fletcher. So Cat is going to go ahead and down tick the card, see what they want to go ahead and grab. As we talked about, a bunch of different stuff. Now I'm fairly certain that O-Stone was from the sideboard, so we can't get that, but is going to go ahead and get the One Ring, which buys us a turn against this giant board. Does not buy the Karn a turn, though. It only gives you protection off the Karn.
Interesting. So yeah, Khan is going to bite the dust, and then I guess it's just a statement of confidence that yeah, my Ulamog can. I guess you exile the 2 biggest things, and then Ulamog is the biggest thing still on the ground. So yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, and then the nice thing about the ring is it not only buys you a turn, but it also gets you basically 3 cards. And Cat is pretty low on cards right now, so they kind of need to find a little bit more gas in the tank. Maybe looking for one of the main deck Oblivion Stones to be able to clean up this board, something along those lines. But at the end of the day, Oblivion Stone puts them back all in the graveyard, and if Fletcher just have another Cascade spell down the road, you can just kind of rebuy them. So really wants to combine maybe an Oblivion Stone plus something like a Relic of Progenitus to just get everything out at once. But we'll have to see how this plays out. See
Yeah,
another Karn.
okay. I mean, the idea might be that if you just have an Ulamog, let's say, well, Fletcher might actually be able to beat that still. Whereas the One Ring, it buys you time, bridges you to the next thing, and then you're drawing 1 card, 2 card, 3 more cards. You're going to find the next big thing after that. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and now that we've exhausted the O Stone and the One Ring, what can we really get with this next card? We can get a bridge, but we kind of had too many cards in hand for bridge. We can get Wormcoil Engine. Past that, there's really not much else besides those 4, so might want to look towards one of those.
Wormcoil is a pretty nice blocker. It has its own vulnerability to stuff like Foundation Breaker or whatever. And with a board this big, Fletcher can just keep attacking through it and actually make some headway. So it's only a delaying tactic if that.
Right, so yeah, Cat's going deep in the tank. Not really sure what they want to do here. We're gonna go ahead and ship the turn. Picked up a Force Negation for Fletcher. That is a massive draw step. That's going to cover the next Karn. And that might not be able to be beatable for Cat because, I mean, you can go towards the Ulamog, but, while Ulamog does kill 2 things, I don't think it really gets us out of this mess.
Yeah, this is an attack for a whole lot, let's say. So 15, 19, 22, 29, and then there were more creatures like tucked up there at the top. Okay, so they're comfortably more than 20.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can go, say, Ulamog, kill Curator and the green creature. That's the generous end, right? Yeah, so kill the creator and the generous end, and then you can block a Stripe Riverwinder. That would be, I guess you want to kill the Waker. So you kill Waker, Curator, block end, take 10, 13, 17. So I guess that Ulamog does buy you a turn. Tough spot.
I'm sure Force of Negation is on Cat's radar as well, but maybe in a spot where they just can't afford to try to play around it.
Oh, well, if you're not going to play around Force Negation, this one's a pretty good one to jam because that not only cleans everything up, it exiles everything.
That was a nice draw there, Fletcher Johnson.
Yeah, that Force Negation. Oh boy. Have to imagine we'll see this Force put on the stack not too long here.
Which, after that happens, the best follow-up for Cat is another copy of the One Ring, right? To buy another turn, see more cards, and do the same thing again next turn, and make Fletcher top like another Force Negation, let's say.
True. So we're actually going to go for subtlety here, which is funny because, like you said, if Cat does have another copy of the Ring, which is not the case because they are conceding the game, but if they did have another copy of the Ring, you could say make Cat put the Ugin on top and then have the Force for next turn. So we're looking at Cat's sideboard here. We have 3 Haywire Mites and then a whole plethora of one-ofs, a Ballista, a Soulless Jailer, a Gigantha, a Wormcoil, a Sundering Titan, an Engineered Explosives, a Tormod Script, a Needle, a Stone Brain, a Bridge, an Oblivion Stone, and the One Ring, which is actually the 4th ring. Do you even sideboard anything if you're Cat?
Yeah, well, this goes back to our earlier debate of if you have a lot of good things that Khan could get, how many do you want in the deck? So, for example, if you resolve a Khan, almost always you're going to want to get the Tormod script, right? First and foremost. So then at that point, do you think, well, I kind of want the ensnaring, the Stone Brain in the deck, especially on the play, so that if I go turn 2 Brain, turn 3 Pop It, right, that might just win me the game on the spot. So you could maybe upgrade some of the weaker Tron payoffs in the deck, like the Sundering Titan, maybe, let's say, and have these cards which, if you draw them early enough, could just win the game right there and then.
Yeah, and when specifically with the Stone Brain, because it's 2 mana to pay and 2 mana to act, or 2 mana to activate, 2 mana to cast, it doesn't really line up that well with Tron and Karn, because you go turn 3, Tron 7 mana, Karn 3 floating, you get Stone Brain, then you can't activate it. So I kind of agree with you where you'd probably rather just draw the Stone Brain, because Karn for Stone Brain is usually going to be too slow against Living End most of the time. But that is going to be Cat's sideboard. Maybe we can have Fletcher's sideboard on the screen here in just a second. And there it is. 2 Brazen Borrower, 2 Foundation Breaker, 3 Subtlety, the 4th copy of Living End, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Force of Vigor, and 3 Leyline of the Void. Probably want to go towards the subtleties and the forces.
Yeah, love the subtleties, foundation breakers as well. You can make a case for Brazen Borrower as well. Force of Vigor is interesting in the sense of, I guess, let's say your Tron opponent, they play a turn on map. Do you force it? Do you pitch your Cascade spell to force it?
Every time.
It's yeah, I mean, I would do it, but I wouldn't feel great about it, right? So you're kind of spending a lot sometimes just to trade with maybe one card, and you have stuff like Foundation Breaker or whatever that can do that instead. So you also don't want to go too low on cyclers, right? Because at that point, your living ends become kind of anemic. It's harder to find the living ends. And then you don't want these hands that are all interaction, but aren't working towards your actual goal. So wouldn't want to over sideboard, but yeah, Subtlety, Foundation Breakers at the minimum sound good to me.
Yeah, and it's funny with this particular list because Fletcher, if you'll notice, only has 14 lands. So you're in a spot where you can't really afford to cut your land cyclers, because then you're actually cutting lands from your deck. So it's like you probably have to cut some of your other cyclers, like maybe you shave on, some of the Street Wraiths or some of the Architects, or I'm not exactly sure, but it's this new Living End shell, because it's shaving on lands for the land cyclers. You kind of have to count those as lands when you're sideboarding. You don't want to go, below 18 or something along those lines.
Yeah, those are load-bearing generous ends. You can't afford to touch those.
Exactly. And they do make a food when they come in. They do make a food when they come into play. But I've been very impressed. Well, I guess we haven't seen it a ton on camera, but I got to play a couple of games with the Oliphant, with the red creature, and I've been very impressed with that card. Just, it not only does it hit so hard, the fact that it has trample and it gives something else trample, like just making it so it's really hard to chump block that thing. And it's only a common. It's pretty minor, and people might think it's minor, but I've been very impressed with that card.
Yeah, one issue living end can have sometimes is, let's say you have to go for a small living end and you get an Architect and a Striped Riverbinder. Well, a lot of opponents can just beat that board pretty easily again. If you have an Oliphant and anything else, that's often a lethal strike force right there. It's so much damage. I've been super impressed by that card as well.
Yeah. And then obviously the talk of the town over the weekend, the One Ring. This is Cat is the only one sporting the One Ring in our top 8. They do have the full 4 copies in the 75, but yeah, we've seen that card basically we've seen that card everywhere over the course of today. And me, Dom, and I, we're both kind of not only impressed with how well it's done, but we kind of regretfully slow, because we maybe both saw it of the spoiler and didn't think too much of it.
It would be weird if, after all is said and done, the most impactful card from this set is Generous End.
Or Oliphant, yeah.
Don't know if that makes sense in the lore or whatever, but it's an outcome that could happen.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. I personally have played a lot with Samwise. That was the card that I kind of wanted to play the most, and I tried it a couple different shells. I tried the food shell. I tried kind of the more focused combo shell, and that card just felt pretty good too. Like the ability to rebuy Urza Saga kind of gives you like this Ren and 6 without having to play red, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, there's this kind of infinite grinding potential with that card. I think ultimately, as a combo deck, it's a little too slow in that regard, because it's a 3-card combo, lots of moving parts and so on. But if you can play these longer games, then yeah, you have the first Sunrise is about to die, but it buys back the second Sunrise, and you just do the whole thing again. Like you can really, it's shockingly resilient for a deck that relies on this 2-mana 2/2, right?
Yeah, you just kind of get into the Samwise loops. And yeah, that card's been pretty good. I'm trying to think of some other cards. We didn't see Stern Scolding. That was one that Mason and Julian were kind of talking about a little bit. I'm trying to see if we can maybe look up some of the Murktide list, but I don't remember seeing it at all. There's actually not even a lot of Murktide in our top 25, to be fair.
No, well, it's pretty good against all of your various Samwise decks, but I think it's not good enough against the format at large. Like, look at this matchup, right? Tron versus Living End, like it's basically 0 targets across the board.
Yeah, that is a good point. Well, you counter
the Shardless Agent,
I guess.
There we go.
Counter the Shardless Agent. Shardless Agent does some work. Yeah, that's actually a very surprising thing. Now that I'm looking at the top 25, there's not a single Murktide deck list in the top 25. I think the best placing finish was 28th around there. Yeah, 28th, which is a little surprising because, is it Murktide is one of those decks where if a lot of people are doing a lot of cool new stuff, like specifically the One Ring, the tried and true kind of counterspell plus tempo plan is usually good against that kind of stuff. But maybe the One Ring is the real deal.
Some would argue that Murktide is just kind of washed. It's a little mid, as the kids say.
49% win rate.
Something like that. I couldn't possibly comment, but more and more people are saying this.
Oh man! All right, Cat's on 4, which a lot of people you think, and you've had this experience too. When your opponent's mulligans to 6, and you're like, you kind of pump the fist a little bit, and then they go to 5, and you're like, okay, all right, cool, and then they go to 4, and the second they mull to 4, you're just like, oh crap, I'm dead.
Yeah, because you're playing against Tron. Luckily, Fletcher already knows that at this point, but it's definitely a common experience of like, you're chanting to yourself, 5, 5, 5, and then you're like, no, just kidding, take it back, keep 6, please be Murktide or something.
Well, Cat is on 3 cards. You know what? 3 cards work pretty well together.
3?
I think. Well, I don't know if the 3 is the number that Cat's on or the number of mulligans that they've taken. That one I can't confirm or deny.
I mean, at that point, you're either 3 cards or 4 cards, so there's not too much difference there.
Well, I see 2 Tron lands. Oh, I see 3 Tron lands. I don't know if we're matching or if we're missing. I mean, if we're on 3, just keep 3 Tron lands. We'll have to see what Cat does. All right, 3 it is. How many Tron lands? Well, okay. I'm pretty sure I saw a second Tron land.
Okay, no, we do have a land drop. Fine.
All right, what do we get from Fletcher? A grief? Yeah, you're going to see the bad news. Okay, all right. Can you imagine? All right. Just need a
played around grief perfectly. But in all seriousness, though, Cat passes, gets a 3rd Tron piece, and then if Cat just draws Khan the Great Creator, let's say, and Fletcher doesn't have a response, I think Model 3 might be enough.
Yeah, we might just be done at that point. Yeah, Force of Negation is a card the Cat definitely does not want to see, but we will have to see if Fletcher has that. Got to go ahead and get a tap Steam Vent, so no Cycler here. Kind of interesting.
And some speculation that Fletcher has Force of Negation in hand. I'm firing that off on that Expedition map, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. Especially in a Multi 3.
Yeah, it might be no blue card to pair with it, though.
That could be.
The issue there. Yeah.
Well, if you got Force of Negation and no blue card, there's a card the Great Creator up the top. I got some bad news for you, Fletcher. All right. Big whammies. Or big money, no whammies. Something like that. Whatever the kids say.
Oh. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm in my 30s, Devin. You're younger than I am.
All right. Giganta pickup pass. I know. The sigh. That's a spot where, like, if I know I'm going to pick up Giganta, I'm just going to tap all my lands and then look at my hand for like 2 seconds and then just pick up the Giganta and say go.
Would it be more frustrating to lose to Tron keeping 7, having natural Tron, and just having the perfect draw, or Tron mulls to 3 and still beats you anyway?
Probably, I don't know. It's pretty close. I never even thought of it that way. I'd probably rather lose to the mull to 3. Because whenever they keep 7, it's like, okay, oh, you can't force a negation that one. Well, let me tell you.
Ooh, some land destruction.
Yeah.
So I would assume Fletcher has Violent Outburst, but if not, we got something.
Yeah, now the interesting thing from Fletcher is you have to decide if you want to like okay, so if you have Violent Outburst, do you want to lose your third land? Because you can either Outburst now before Titan's on the stack, let Cat keep the Titan. Now that's worse. Yeah, you would just go let Titan resolve, trigger on the stack, cast the Outburst. So you would lose your third land, but you would get back the double Wakers and the Griefs, which notably is not lethal. That's only 14 or 17 damage. I could do math, I promise. So Cat would have a draw step here, and Fletcher would have no lands left.
Which are good odds, but not perfect odds.
That would be that's okay. I think I've changed my mind. What I want to see at this point, I want to see Fletcher attacking for lethal with no lands in play. That's what I want to see, because that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, we just might see that. There's the Outburst, to the surprise of nobody. Not going to cascade into a Spell Pierce. Not today, at least. All right, there's the Living End. So I have to imagine we've let the Titan resolve, and we're doing this with the Titan in the stack. Because otherwise, Cat would have a 5/10 blocker for the Wakers. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Titan's going to go away, as well as all of Fletcher's lands. And here's 17 power. All my lands are gone. Oh boy. This is a game, all right.
It is certainly one of the games of Magic.
17 power, no lands. So what's Cat's? So I guess Fletcher does have the Force Negation. So Cat's best draw step here is just Ulamog. Ulamog. I mean,
Well,
Ulamog's a pretty good one.
Yeah, they have the land as well, so Ulamog would do it. I guess Cityscape Leveler would that wouldn't actually.
No,
No.
Leveler, you go kill a Waker, block a Waker. Yeah, that one's unfortunately
Yeah.
not going to do it. Yeah. All right. And that is going to be Fletcher Johnson advancing over Cat Miller Granger 2-1. That was a pretty fun matchup. And, we did we technically got to see what I wanted to see, although Cat conceded before Fletcher attacked for lethal.
Yeah, not the way you want to go out, but this is the experience you signed up for by registering Tron. So, great run from Cat. They get to add another top 8 to their resume, but ends in a pretty dramatic fashion there.
All right, so let's see. We got to see Fletcher Johnson take down Cat Miller Granger. That was the 1 versus 8. We got Matthew Hoey advancing over Michael Anderson. That's your Teamer Rhinos versus Golgari Yawgmoth. Travis Brown, we also saw defeating Isaiah Mosher, and then Chris Smith losing to Thomas Deschamps on Rakdos Scam. So tomorrow we're going to see Travis Brown versus Thomas Deschamps. That's Hammer versus Scam. And then we're also going to see Fletcher Johnson versus Matthew Hoey living in against Rhinos. So should be a lot of fun. And who do you got taking down these matchups, Dom?
So historically, in the Cascade pseudo mirror, Living End has been pretty heavily favored. Matt Hoey seemed pretty confident. He wasn't scared of the Living End, but we'll see if Fletcher can puncture that confidence at all. On the other side, I like Travis Brown to beat Scam again, face off against one of our Cascade decks in the finals, which Rhinos versus Hammer, I kind of like the Hammer side for the most part. Hammer against Living End is pretty horrible for Hammer, especially mono white Hammer. So the outcome of that semifinal might decide the whole tournament here.
All right. Well, so we'll go ahead and take a look at our next event here, St. Louis, July 8th through the 9th. We have a 10K team showdown as well as a 5K legacy trial. And then after that, we will be going to Detroit, August 12th through the 13th, 10K Modern Showdown, as well as a 5K Pioneer Trial. After that, we're going to be taking a trip to Indianapolis 10K Pioneer Showdown, as well as a 10K Team Trial. And then we will close out the year November 25th and the 26th in Madison with a 10K Modern Showdown, as well as a 5K Pioneer Trial. And that, I believe, is going to... I don't know if you want to take a look at something else. All right, we're going to go back to us. Well, it has been a blast, Dom. I had a great time today. Thank you so much for everybody in chat. Dom, any last words before we take off here?
I know this has been a lot of fun. We will leave you in capable hands tomorrow to finish off the modern portion, and then you'll see me again in the afternoon with Mason for some legacy action, which I'm very excited for as well.
Yeah, some Orcish Bowmasters tomorrow. Cannot wait to watch it, but don't miss us tomorrow. We're going to finish the Modern Showdown, and we're going to go and crown a Legacy Champion as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.